When you received your microphone system, can you give me an idea of what your experience was with it?
Great, loved it. Yeah, I don't want it to be taken away. I find that it makes me a lot calmer because I'm not having to raise my voice. If I raise my voice, my stress goes up. So if I can keep my voice down and calm, then I can stay calm as well.
You could be sure your voice was carrying around the whole room during the lesson rather than having to give the instructions to this half of the room and then repeat yourself to the other half of the room while competing with the background noise from all the computers and the projector. Made it much, much easier in that room.
There's 16 PCs and 1 laptop, plus the interactive whiteboard and projector, plus the air conditioning unit. So there's a lot of white noise, background noise to compete with in that room.
I really enjoyed it. I'm a very loud person as it is. So I normally, at a normal tone, I'm quite loud, and Mr. Roberts always has to lower your tone, lower, keep it lower. So this actually forced me to actually be quieter, which was good, because I did go home and I had all of my voice capacity, which was great.
Do you feel that the children are hearing better and understanding better?
I think they must notice because they will often tell me if it's not switched on.
You're not wearing it, miss.
Yeah. Or it's not on if I've got it around my neck, so it's there, but they realise it's not on because the sound level is different.
When you're teaching, as the lesson goes on, you'll often stop to reiterate a point. And you can do that from wherever you are in the room rather than having to make your way back to the front. You can be standing in an awkward place in the room, but you can talk and you can be sure that the whole class is picking up on what you're saying rather than you having to say it a couple of times or draw them all back around to the front of the room.
If I try and get the attention of the class without it on, you can see they're still carrying on doing their task or whatever it is they're doing at that particular time. But when I switch the unit on, because sometimes I forget, because if I'm speaking with a child, I'll switch it off so that no one can hear what I'm saying to that particular child. So when I want to speak to the whole class, at times I forget to switch the unit back on. But as soon as I switch it back on, suddenly everyone's like, oh, she's speaking, I can hear you. And you can physically see them react in that way. They haven't heard you before, but they can hear you now and know that you want to draw their attention.
The children, particularly at the back, said they could hear instructions clearer. They could understand the content that I was delivering, and they didn't need it to be repeated. So that was just clear and cut that obviously they can hear better and that it is better for them at the back of the class for clarity and for understanding.
Has using the microphone changed your teaching style in any way? Are you doing anything different than the way you did it before you started using the microphone?
Definitely not raising my voice to talk over them. That's the first thing.
Being able to just talk. Instead of feeling that you're presenting and having to boom, you can just stand there and talk and be more conversational with it.
I wouldn't say that necessarily my teaching style has changed. It's just purely that I don't have to raise my voice as much to project my voice to the back so that they can hear me at the back.
For me, it's been far more about voice projection and just being able to use a quieter tone and noticing that there isn't that strain at the end of the day. Yeah. You know, even if you have had a rough day, your voice is still intact.
Do you ever use the whiteboard?
That does make a big difference. It is much easier to take contributions from them, be writing things or modelling things on the whiteboard, and also talk at the same time without having to think, oh, I'm talking to the whiteboard, they can't hear me, or spending the time to turn and speak to them, put something on the board and then have to wait till you turn back. So the flow of the lesson, I think, is improved in that way.
Have you noticed with spelling or phonics work that they are improving or that they're hearing you better?
We do phonics daily, so I think it's the clarity of the sound helps with the phonics, so that they can hear.
High up in the school, the emphasis moves away from phonics and we look more at spelling patterns and letter strings and things like that. And it's just like Jan was saying about them being able to hear exactly what you're saying and what you're talking about. And you know, if you can hear what's going on better, then in turn that will help you to understand what you're trying to learn in that particular session or lesson.
Let's talk about the equipment itself. Do you have any feedback for us? What did you think?
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was initially going to be. I thought, oh, I'm going to forget to wear it. I'm going to, you know, it's going to be knocking everywhere. But once you get used to it, it's okay. You know, as the children will remind you if you forget to wear it. But in fact, it doesn't even have to get to that stage, because as soon as you're speaking to the class, you're realising you're having to project again, and you can start to feel your throat straining, and you go and put it on, because you know once you wear it, everything's going to be a lot more easier. When you're dealing with your class. The actual unit itself, when it's hanging around your neck, it's not that much of an issue. You get used to the weight of it, you get used to how it feels.
Rather than me being louder, it spreads my voice more equally around the classroom, so it doesn't allow for them to be noisier, which was my initial thought. It just allows for them to hear better.
As soon as the unit was installed and we had an in-class demonstration, a child said, "Oh, it's like you're sitting right beside me." And that is just how it is for them. It's as if the teacher is speaking beside them. And so they're less likely to lose focus on what's going on in the lesson, because sometimes if you're not projecting your voice properly, it's almost as if it's a mumble. You're mumbling to them and they're just not taking it in, and then they start to fiddle and do other things.
Was there any experience that you had that when you were using the microphone, something happened maybe with a particular child, and you saw that this really was making a difference for that child?
I can't think of one instance, but I do know in the feedback that I had a lot of children saying clarity of instructions, clarity of content delivered. They didn't need to ask for repeats. They didn't need to ask me to come over and then re-explain to them.
Having to repeat to the whole class, I'm certainly finding that's not happening nearly as much.
So do you find that you're able to vary the range of your voice when you're using the microphone, or do you still have to teach in a teacher voice or a big voice? Does it make a difference for you?
It still picks up the lower tone, so you still get that inference of whispering at the back. And the inference of booming at the back, without booming.
I do story reading during lessons and at the end of the day. And you like to act out the stories, and I know that I can whisper, I can be very quiet, I can be very dramatic, and every child can still hear me, not just the children who are sitting in the front row or sitting at the front tables.
Teaching without the red cat would be like going back to teaching on chalkboard. You just can't imagine that.
It's helped me with my learning because I've been hearing the teacher more clearly, because usually I don't really hear the teacher, but now it's helped me with my learning, and I've moved up a lot of groups because of the amplifier.
Before, some people may not be able to hear the teacher more clearly, and the amplification could help them.
Reading and writing, I used to be on red group, but now I've gone up to orange group, so I'm on orange group for everything now.
Yeah, it does make a difference, because when in things like maths and stuff, when you can't hear very well, it makes it more louder and you get things right.
It's like some people that are sitting in the corner couldn't really see the board properly, because it's like the light's coming on the board and it's all shiny and you can't see the board properly. But with the microphone, you don't need to see, you can just listen to what the teacher wrote on the board. So you could just say it instead of write it.
My favourite thing about the microphone is that the teacher doesn't really have to shout. You can just hear her when she's using it, and she doesn't have to strain her voice, and her voice is really clear. But before, she had to shout and some people weren't listening, so she had to say it over again, but now people can hear her the first time.
Before we had the system, our teacher kept losing her voice, and it really wasn't helpful to our learning. And now she doesn't have to shout or have anger.